Hello! Welcome or welcome back. My name is Amanda and this is my channel all about knitting. In today's episode, we're going to sit down and chat about what I have been knitting over the past couple weeks. I have an almost finished pullover, a new cast on, and a cardigan to talk to you about today. Before we jump on in, everywhere you can find me on the internet is linked down below in the description. My Instagram, my Ravelry, my website, all those fun things, as well as my Ko-Fi and a place where you can leave any suggestions that you might have for a upcoming video. One other announcement before we jump on in. I did want to let you know that I have decided to close the shop. Not permanently, I promise, but just for the spring and summer. So starting April 14th, the shop is going to be closed down until probably mid-September, so I can spend time with my friends and family. We have a lot of people coming to visit this year, and so to save myself having to worry about getting orders and stuff out while people are visiting, I thought, you know what? Let's just close the shop for the spring and summer, and we'll open back up in September, which is really prime knitting time, I would say anyways. We're all knitting in spring and summer, but not so much with wool fibers, and that is what I dye. So I figured it wouldn't hurt anyone too much. So yeah, the reason I am saying this is if there was anything that you wanted to grab from the shop, please get your orders in before April 14th, and I'll make sure I get that out to you ASAP, and then I will be closed for the spring and summer. Other than that, I don't think I have anything pressing to talk about, so let's jump into my works in progress. The first one I'm going to show you is my Opal Sweater by Ozetta. This pattern is going to be coming very soon, and I have got a lot done on it. I would definitely say my focus has been on this one, or this has been what my hands have been drawn to, my mind has been drawn to lately. I have it in this bag from Brooklyn Haberdashery, and I've got a lot done since last time, like a lot. I probably could have had this finished by this episode, but it didn't happen, and that's fine. So here we are. Let me slide back a little bit. The sleeves are both done, and I have maybe an inch left on the body before I add the ribbing. So yeah, let's talk about the Opal Sweater. I am knitting the size 4 for this one. The pattern calls for about 7 3/4 to 8.5 inches of positive ease, and for this size I'm going to get approximately 5 inches of positive ease. I didn't want it to be huge, but like still oversized, so I think the size 4 should work out quite well for me. You can see these sleeves here are just nice and big and billowy with a little bit of a bubble sleeve at the end. I wouldn't say it's super intense, but you do decrease a decent amount of stitches at the end. I'll probably block this out a wee bit when I do finally block it, just so it matches the pattern photos. But yeah, otherwise, just working away. You can see the color work is only on the sleeves, and then the body is just going to be this plain stockinette with twisted ribbing. The whole garment is finished with twisted ribbing, in fact, and I did do, for the very first time, a twisted tubular bind off, which took me a couple times. I had to rip one sleeve out once just because I was not paying attention to the instructions. But I do really like the finish it gives. Just a really nice clean transition from the twisted ribbing into the bind off. So yeah, let's see. Yarn. I am using the called for yarn for this project. I was kindly gifted yarn from Wooldreamers and Ozetta to be able to knit this up. So the main color I'm using, I'm holding 2 yarns together for this. Wooldreamers Saona in the colorway 1985, and Biches and Buches La Petite, is it Silk and Mohair or Mohair and Silk? One of those. But I'm holding that double with the Saona in the colorway, what is it? Dark blue green. So that is my main color. It's giving definitely a really cool marled effect. And then for the contrast colors here, the green is the Wooldreamers Saona in the colorway Groen, held double with Knitting for Olive Soft Silk Mohair. So many names. Soft Silk Mohair in the colorway Dusty Artichoke. The lighter color here is Saona in Notes, held with Knitting for Olive in Marzipan. So many names to remember for this sweater. And then this here is Saona Sarchief, and I did end up going with the Mushroom Rose color. So if you watched last episode, I was kind of floating between two different mohairs to hold with this, and I ended up going with the Mushroom Rose, and I'm really happy that I did. I think it's really, really cute. Sorry if my framing changed. I forgot to check that my SD card was empty before I started, and so I had to put a new one in. Something I did want to note too about the Saona yarn from Wooldreamers. Last episode, I did talk about how I had found a bunch of knots in the one ball of yarn, and I wanted to update on that. I did hear back from Wooldreamers. They were wonderful, very, very kind. They said that is not normal, and I agree, because every single other ball of yarn I used was not like that. I had just mentioned that because full transparency, especially when I'm getting sent the yarn for free, I want to be honest about it. I don't want to be saying, oh, it's all wonderful and perfect. So they did contact me back very quickly. Like, I think the next day they had emailed me back and said that is not normal. They're going to contact their mill and make sure that that doesn't happen again. And they did kindly offer me another ball of yarn. I turned them down because I'm still going to have plenty to finish my sweater, but I wanted to let you know that. I know I had talked about too how the yarn looks slightly different on the website than what I got in person. I know that's a thing, but they had apologized for that too and just said that with different monitors, colors can change. And so I did want to mention that here too, because obviously I maybe didn't explain that very well last episode, that I totally understand. Monitors are all different, and so colors are going to look totally different on different monitors, and I was not upset with the color that arrived. It's just a little different than I expected. Still beautiful though, so just wanted to mention that as well, that I'm not mad. I don't know. I have no issues. I'm very happy with how the sweater turned out. I'm very happy with how it looked with that mohair and stuff. But yeah, I did want to let you know that they were wonderful. They contacted me back very quickly, and they are looking into those issues with the yarn. So don't let that turn you away. I think it's a great yarn. I am loving it, actually. I have a project coming up that I got more of the Groen for, the green color yarn that I'm going to be using very soon. I think last year I had some bad experiences with just straight out cotton yarn, but something about the cotton and the wool mixed, and actually I even liked a cotton and linen mixed yarn last year. I think I just don't like cotton on its own is what it is, but I am a huge fan of this base. So yeah, all that to say, their customer service was fantastic, and I will continue to give them my business. Color work is done. You definitely could get away with doing this color work with scraps. I barely used any of most of my balls of yarn. I used definitely, I would say, the most of the green. I don't know what I have weight-wise left, but definitely the most of the green. But like, I barely used any of the Mushroom Rose and the Sarchief. I have pretty much full skeins left of both of those, I would say. So I think you could totally get away with knitting this up, the color work at least, with scraps. Like I said, working on the body now, almost done that. This is constructed from the top down. It is you start at the collar, knit the collar, do the folded collar, and then start working down the raglan, and then split for the sleeves. So yeah, I obviously put the body on hold for a while, did the sleeves, and now I'm finishing the body. You can see that progress keeper there is where I was last episode on the body, but I had neither sleeve done last episode. So, or maybe I had picked up and started one just barely, but yeah, really enjoying this. It's been a fun knit. The fabric it's giving is very different than I expected. It's very, very lightweight and quite airy. I'm not sure if you can see my hand through the fabric, but I would say there's definitely, like, the mohair fills in the gaps some, but there's definitely some light that I can see through this. So I'm interested to see how warm it's going to be, because I know the mohair is going to be warm, but it's not as thick and dense as some of the other mohair garments I've knit. So I wonder if that's going to cool it down a little bit or what it's going to do. But yeah, I am enjoying this. It should be out by the end of this month if it's a pattern you're interested in. And I think that's about it. I'm going to move my progress keeper. We're going to get better at doing progress keepers again because I don't know what it's been lately. I used to be so good at moving my progress keepers down. And I guess granted, by the time you see this next, it's probably going to be finished and blocked and I won't need a progress keeper, but yeah. I'm gonna get better at it because it's cool for me too to see how much I've knit in the past 2 weeks. So next project I want to talk about is a new cast on. I have it in a Knitting Nelly bag. This was the one that was holding my louder last episode it was done, but my louder was in here before. I literally just cleared it out to put this in here. But I am testing the Arconia sweater, and this is for Lillian Olson. And I dyed up some yarn for this on a worsted weight base that I have carried occasionally in the shop. It doesn't sell terribly great, so if you're ever interested in a worsted weight yarn, but it's not in the shop, contact me. I can do it. I just don't tend to dye it up because literally all of the samples I have for it, maybe minus 1 or 2, are still hanging up on my yarn wall, so keep that in mind. Anyways, I dyed these up on that worsted weight base. It is a 100% superwash merino, 218 yards per 100 grams. So just this really nice, like, dusty rose sort of color. And then this one, it's always so hard to show on camera, but it's got all sorts of colors in there. I think I put all of the colors I used to make that dusty rose, plus some purple and some blue, green in there. Anyways, I wanted something fun to go along with the rosy color because this is a full colorwork jumper. It's like a herring, or no, I think it's called houndstooth type pattern. So I'm knitting a size 4 for this one. I have barely anything done and a bajillion yarn ends going on here. I just cast this on a few days ago. I wanted to get all of the short rows done so that it was ready to go in the round when I was done my Opal sweater. So I have done that. All of my short rows are done, and it kind of gives you an idea of what it's going to knit up and look like. I had quite a time getting gauge for this one, which is funny for me. Usually I know I just have to drop down a couple needle sizes and I will hit gauge. And I think this pattern calls to be knit on 4mm needles, and I'm using, why can't I find measurement on these? 3.75mm? Maybe? Yes. And even that was a wee bit tight on my gauge swatch, but I didn't want to cut the yarn on it, so I knit the swatch in the round and left it going across the back, which I knew was going to make the swatch a little tighter. So this is fine now that I'm knitting it up on the 3.75mm needles. So maybe it called for 3.5. Now I can't remember. Because I felt like I was higher than the called for. Nope, it does call for 4mm needles, so I am using ever so slightly smaller, but my gauge is good now. So yeah, that was weird because even for colorwork I find I have to go down needle sizes from the called for usually. So yeah, this is obviously, I had to do short rows flat in colorwork, which is always fun, purling and having to hold the yarn in front on the wrong side, but the short rows are done now, and like I said, it's ready to go in the round, and there's not very much done, but let's see. Where am I going with this? I'm sorry, I am not flustered, but we are leaving after I finish recording this to go see the solar eclipse. Like, I feel like everyone and their mother is, but so I'm recording this beforehand so I can edit it when I get home tonight, and so I feel like that makes me ever so slightly scattered. But yeah, short rows are done. Let's see, I talked about the yarn. This calls for about 2 to 4 inches of positive ease, and I'm gonna have about 3 2.75 to 3 inches of positive ease, and I think that should be good, especially because this is going to be a denser fabric. Personally, I don't want too much positive ease because then I feel like that just creates bunching in weird places, where if I'm in that like 2 to 3 inch range, it always tends to fit me in a way that I like. So this is a top-down raglan, and you can see that the raglan seams are all going to be, for me, knit in that really fun multicolored yarn. So that's my main color. My collar will be knit in that then too, and all of my cuffs and hems as well. Kind of going for vibes like I did with my, oh no, Alder sweater by Rebecca Clow, because I want to see the variegated. And so to have it with the cuffs and the collars, you get the little bit of fun with it, but then it's kind of muted down with the solid tonal color is my thought process, at least. And then I guess really the only other thing to say is I'm going to be knitting the cropped version of this. There is a like full-length body version and a cropped one. So I have decided on the crop. So sorry for the amount of cuts today. I have dogs barking, trains, all sorts of stuff going. Like I was saying, or maybe I wasn't because I've cut it out. Anyways, I'm going to be knitting the cropped version of this. There is a full-length version available as well as a cropped, and I think the cropped is going to be really cute, and I have preference for cropped sweaters, I think. I don't know. With what I wear these days, they tend to look the cutest in my opinion, so that is that. There she goes barking again. I should have more done on this next episode once my opal is done. And it's gonna be fun. I love some good color work. I love cables. I think lately I've really been at a cables phase, but it's nice to throw some fun color work in there with the opal and the Arconia, and I don't know, switch things up a little. Only other thing I have been working on is my Interthreading cardigan, which I feel like is really slow going, and I don't know why. It's not that complicated. It's just knits and purls and slip stitches, but it's been taking me a while, so I've got a good couple inches done on it at least. I have this in a Birch Grove bag. I don't know if she is making bags anymore. I know she dyes yarn now. Can't even remember her name, I apologize. I know she dyes yarn now, and I think maybe she's kind of slowly phasing out of the bags, but that is a bag from Birch Grove. I love this one. It's a great bag. Anyways, I am knitting the size 6 for this cardigan by Hannah Sandler, and I'm using my maple walnut colorway. It's like a nice warm pinky-ish kind of beige, grayish, no, beige. It's a beige base with like warm chocolate brown and yellowy and all sorts of fun speckles. Dang, I threw that at the camera almost. All sorts of fun speckles throughout. And yeah, I'm knitting the size 6. This is, like I said, a cardigan. It's like a higher necked, curved neck cardigan. I've knit, what, maybe an inch or two since last episode. I do have a progress keeper on here. You can see where to go. There it is. So yeah, I've knit a couple inches on the body, and yeah, I've finished 2 balls of yarn now. So I think when I did the math, oh no, I pulled my needles out. Well, that's fun. That's my own fault for not having finished a row, or having just started a row. There's very few stitches on that other needle, so it makes sense why I pulled it out. We'll just stick them all on one so that I can hold this up, and we'll fix that later. Yeah. Okay, interthreading. So it is like just a high-necked, curved, rounded neck. I still don't know what the technical name for that type of cardigan is, but that's what it's going to be. And dropped shoulder, they're gonna hit pretty low on me. This cardigan calls for, let's see, anywhere from 5 to 10 inches of positive ease. And at the time of applying for testing, I think she had said 5 to 12, and then she changed that later. So I'm actually gonna have 11-ish inches of positive ease for mine, which I'm fine with. I think it's gonna be really cute with the 11 inches, and she was fine, Hannah was fine with me sticking with what I had originally applied for, so that is what I am doing. I didn't talk about the called for yarn with the Arconia, but I think I'll leave that until next episode because there's really not much that I have completed on that yet. So we'll get into more details with the Arconia next episode. But I do want to start talking about the called for yarn more often, just so you can kind of get an idea of what I do when I substitute yarn. Now this one is a pretty one-for-one substitution because the called for yarn and the yarn I'm using are basically the same base. I kind of want to be able to give you an idea of what my mindset is when I'm substituting yarns. The main thing I look for most times is yardage. So I want both the yarn I'm using and the called for yarn to have similar yardage. So for this one, the called for yarn is from ZZ Textiles. It's their classic DK and it's 100% superwash merino, 231 yards per 100 grams. And the yarn I'm using is my Birch DK base, which is the exact same yardage, 231 yards per 100 grams. So that's kind of how I decided that this yarn would be acceptable, because it's basically the exact same base. But sometimes I'll kind of go looking at, let's say this is, let's just talk Arconia. It's not in the right section, but so the call for Arconia yarn is 123 yards per 50 grams. So per 100 grams, that's about 246. The yarn I'm using is 218 yards, but a hit gauge. So it's still in the same range. It's not that far off, and I was able to hit gauge with it. So that's a fine substitution, in my opinion. Hope that makes sense. Anyways, yeah, I'm using the Birch DK base, which is a 100% superwash merino, and it is knitting up really, really nicely. The body, I think, calls to be about 10 or 11 inches in from the underarm, rather, and I'm gonna knit to about that and then kind of try it on and see where it's laying on me. Obviously it's going to grow in length a little bit when I block it because I am knitting this out of a superwash yarn, but we'll kind of see where it's sitting and go from there. Actually, I was gonna say I'd try it on, but no, I want to have tried on tubing because it's kind of smooshed on the needles here. But yeah, it's obviously, you can see it's gonna sit quite dropped on me if I do a little turn there. Anyways, the texture, I love the texture. This is all, like I said, knits, purls, slip stitches, and it's been really, really fun. But like I said, slow going. And I think it might have to do with the slip stitches, because a slip stitch obviously isn't going to be as deep as a normal row of knit stitches. If I'm slipping them, it kind of sucks it in a little bit and makes it a little bit shorter. So I think that's what's kind of making it go a little bit longer. Also, my stitch gauge is exactly to pattern, but my row gauge was a little bit tighter. So I feel like that's also making a bit of a difference. Now, when I block it, I should be able to get quite a bit of length out of it, and it might be actually worth my time to give this a bit of a steam block and see where I'm at that way too. Maybe I'll do that this coming week and kind of see where that brings my length to, because it's definitely going to drop some once I steam block it. So yeah, that's where I'm at with this. There's not really much change in shape or anything. There's just that couple inches of added length. I've already moved my progress keeper down. Go me. But been working on it. Again, once this opal is done, this is going to get a lot of work too, because the opal has a short turnaround. That is one thing with Ozetta. She definitely has short turnarounds, which I'm not a huge fan of, but if I can fit them in, sometimes I will. So with that being said, I don't have any acquisitions this week. This here is all from stash. I was pulling stuff and playing with things and then didn't feel like putting it away before I recorded. Plus, who doesn't like some beautiful yarn to look at in the background? Those will possibly be future projects. I'm kind of figuring out what I want to do with some yarn, so that's why that's sitting there. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider doing so. It helps the channel out a lot, gets my video out there to other knitters just like you. And if you have any video requests, especially now that you've watched this video, if you have any questions that you think would make a good video, make sure you leave them in that form I have linked down below in the description. Let me know what you're working on too. I love to hear about the projects you have on your needles and learn about some new patterns. And I will see you next week. Bye!